Welcome to Storytelling. This week's guest is a business development expert with over 40 years of strategic planning, sales and marketing experience. She is committed to shattering age stereotypes and revolutionizing the face of entrepreneurship. That's why she's so passionate about working with maturepreneurs to identify, claim and position their value so they can make a meaningful difference and a magnificent living. Her other major passion besides travel is facilitating personal transformation. She's dedicated to helping experts and entrepreneurs master the inner and outer game of business. Please welcome Jannette Anderson. Hello, Jannette, and welcome to the podcast.
I am so happy to be here, Debbie.
Jannette, you've described retirement as a dirty word. Can you share the moment you realised you weren't ready to retire and why?
Well, you know what? I don't know if I ever thought about retirement. I love what I do. I'm still stupidly in love with it. And so I can't conceive of not doing it. Even when I win the lottery, I would still be working. I would just be doing it with a lot more help. The reason that I'm so kind of anti-retirement, or more for unretirement is probably a better word, is because I was the subject of ageism a little while ago. 2020, I was on a business cruise with 450 other business owners from around the world and at a networking event. And someone asked me, "What do you do?" And I was mid-sentence answering him, and he turned and started talking to someone else. I thought, well, how rude. Well, actually, I thought something a little bit stronger, but so I excused myself very politely and went to the next group. And lo and behold, the same thing happened. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not showing up. Maybe I'm not owning my energy or whatever. And it's like, no, I have polka dot glasses and blue hair and I'm pretty big presence. So nope, that wasn't it. What was going on? So I got really curious and started to look and realized at that time about 10% of the population that was cruisers in our group were about 55 and up. And they were all pretty much ignored, dismissed, or overlooked, especially the women with gray hair. They were actually literally invisible. And frankly, Debbie, that pissed me off. And so I went from not just loving my work and wanting to do it forever, but to really understanding that we need to unretire. It's better for us if we continue to be active and engaged. And frankly, 65% of us can't afford to retire anyways. So we have to work. So I really think that retirement is an old, outdated notion that from the 50s, you know, that whole idea of you're going to go to school, then get a job, and then climb the corporate ladder and have a family, have 2.5 kids, and then retire. So that old notion of retirement just doesn't work anymore. So I'm a big advocate for people refiring, not retiring.
So many seasoned professionals have a similar experience to what you just described and feel sidelined in the job market. Why do you think that happens?
Well, I think ageism is alive and well there too. And by the way, this is a global experience. I've talked to people from every country, well, maybe not every country, but many countries around the world. And it's very similar. The age at which we get discriminated against is different. For instance, in Mexico, I've been told by more than one person that it's almost impossible to get a corporate job after 45. So it's even younger there than in a lot of places. But ageism is alive and well. Corporations feel like, we're going to be a drain on the health plan because we're going to become, decline and decrepitude. And that's not the case. In many, many cases, we're healthier, more vital, and take off less time than a lot of younger counterparts who tend to take more time off. We will likely be with the company longer. That's another concern and fear, is that we're going to want to retire in a few years. The reality is most boomers and Gen Xers will be with the company at least 5 to 10, and in some cases, 20 years. We still have 10, 20, 30, 40 years until we're done. And we can't afford to not work during that time, but we also don't want to just play pickleball for 40 years, right? So, or knit or whatever is super popular there, watch Netflix. So it's really about corporations have lots of concerns. They also have a concern that we're not as technologically savvy, which is a blind prejudice. It's not the case for everyone. And with AI, it's becoming irrelevant because AI is easy to learn. Most older people who are not necessarily tech savvy can easily learn AI and have all the technical abilities that they need. Unless you're applying for an IT job, you don't have to know how to put together systems and so on. So they are tech savvy enough for 90% of the jobs, especially once they learn AI. So that's also a myth that's going around in the corporate world. So I think there's so many benefits to hiring older workers too. Statistically, morale goes up when you hire older workers because they bring a lot of emotional intelligence to the workplace. So they stay longer, they're more loyal, they work harder, they have a different work ethic than other generations. And they tend to bring a different kind of innovation that, when put together with younger innovation, is really valuable because younger people have a blank slate, which is great for innovation. Older people have contextual experience, which is also great. When you put the two together, it's the most powerful way to innovate. Because if you don't have that contextual experience, then you're just casting about, forever. If you don't have the blank slate, then you're drawing from the past and throwing it on the future. But together, it's extremely powerful. So, employers, if you're listening to this, wake up, smell the coffee. These are great people to hire. And that will be the solution to the employee crisis, because it used to be that 100 people were coming into the market for every 200 leaving. It's not the exact statistic, but close enough. And now it's switched. Now there's 100 coming in for every 200 leaving. So we're going to have an employee shortage. So organizations are going to have to pull their head out of their you-know-what and realize that they need this demographic because it's the only one available to fill those holes. So the good news is, for older people, we won't be sidelined quite as much soon, but soon is not soon enough. Soon is still probably 5 to 10 years away. And frankly, that's way too long for this prejudice to continue to stand. Ageism and sizeism are the two condoned prejudices that still exist, and they need to not be the case. So as you can tell, I'm a little passionate about advocating for this. The end of this ism. Ageism needs to go.
So you've explained some of the biggest misconception that employers have.
Yeah.
But how can someone over 50 leverage their experience to stay relevant and competitive in today's market?
Oh, great question. Well, one thing, first of all, learn AI. The fastest, quickest ability that you have to leverage your relevance is to know AI. And it's really, really very simple to learn. And I'm not just saying that because I use it. I'm saying that because it's actually very simple to learn. And in fact, if you ask it, it will teach you all about itself. It's a very helpful tool. So that's one. Include that on your resume. Use it to draft your resume, and use it to help you find employers who are at least outwardly professing to be non-ageist or age inclusive, or various different phrases in different countries. But if they have on their website that they have strong diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I think is still marketed there, it's being banned in the US, essentially. So it's become a very contentious point. But if there's a company that professes that, then you have a much stronger leveraging point to say, by the way, diversity and inclusion includes older people. So one of the things that I would say is make sure that you really emphasize your core competencies. So what allows you to be adaptive? What allows you to go into any situation and add value? Yes, your experience, but too much experience can be daunting because they're going to say you're overqualified. So distill it down into core competencies and abilities rather than a whole, list of 40 years of jobs. That's daunting. The other thing is they have a bias around budget. So they think they can hire a younger person for cheaper. So you need to come in with a way to handle that objection. So you need to think about that from both their point of view and yours, and be able to say things like, yes, you can hire younger people for less, but they don't have the experience. They aren't going to ramp up as quickly. They don't have the longevity of staying with an organization. So in the longer run, you'll turn over millennials more often than you will hiring boomers and Gen Xers. And therefore, they are far more expensive because to replace every person is anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 to replace that person for an organization. So when you know facts like that, and by the way, again, you can use AI or just Google searches to find out those kinds of facts, then you can really advocate for yourself. You can make a case, because it's not just about applying a job. It's about making a case for why they are better off with you than with someone else. That's always the case when you're being hired, but more so when you're an older person, because you have to make a case that really directly speaks to all of their hidden biases.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to do that quite as much if we're not in a biased category.
What inspired you to create Maturepreneur?
Well, it was partially the whole thing about being annoyed about ageism, but mostly it was that what I recognized was this perfect storm of opportunity, Debbie. So, two trends and two epidemics that are going on right now that I call creating this perfect storm. One is, like I mentioned, the epidemic of poverty. 65% of people around the world, it's a little bit very different in different countries, but roughly in that range, can't afford to retire. If 65% of the population, in your country had a cancer, there would be a lot of attention being paid to that. And yet there's very little attention being paid to this poverty epidemic. So these are people who are somewhere between food and housing insecurity and simply can't live the life that they would like to. They can't pay their bills if they don't make money. Mm-hmm. And they can't get jobs because of ageism still. So they pretty much have to become entrepreneurial. Many of them did not come up that way. And there's very little support, resources, or help for them to make that transition and do that. And so the poverty epidemic is a problem. The largest cohort of entrepreneurs ever to come into the market in history, which is happening right now with boomers and Gen Xers, it's the hugest influx of entrepreneurs, is a huge opportunity. But marketers and companies and the marketplace is not seeing it because we're invisible. We're overlooked. So there's all of the literally just under 1 billion people that need support and services. And what do you see? I don't know about in the UK, but in North America, the ads that are targeted at us are for stair lifts and walk-in tubs and Depends like diapers and Viagra and drugs. And there's nothing about business insurance for us, adventure travel, business services, none of that. They just assume that we're off, either enjoying our life or being decrepit, and therefore we're out of sight and out of mind. And about 80% of the population is not actually retiring. So poverty epidemic, greatest cohort of entrepreneurs ever to come into the market in history. Also, one of the wealthiest demographics. 35% of this population holds almost 80% of the wealth, 79.5% of the wealth right now in the hands of boomers and Gen Xers. That's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars around the world. But again, we're not being marketed to, we're not being served, and yet we have the most money in history. It's like, there's a bit of a mismatch there and a huge opportunity. The second epidemic is the loneliness epidemic. Around the world, 1 in 3 people struggle with mental health issues related to loneliness. Some of that's post-COVID hangover. Some of that is our technological world. Some of that is older people, the older, aging generation that are more isolated. Some of it is the huge amount of solopreneurs. But we need community more than ever. We need connection more than ever. So those 4 things together create the most amazing opportunities for businesses, for the marketplace, for governments, for everybody. And they're not seeing it. It's still not on their radar. It makes me crazy. When I talk to banks, they're barely catching up to marketing to women as a market. It's like, really? Seriously? Dudes, never mind, older people. Like I said, we're not on their radar yet. So I think that there is just this huge, amazing opportunity right now and crisis, both. They often go hand in hand. And we need to wake up government to it. We need to wake up the marketplace to it. We need to wake ourselves up to it. Can't tell you how many people I've talked to. I go and speak to Rotary groups and stuff, and they're shocked by the fact that there's that many people who can't afford to retire. They think everyone's like them. Frankly, mostly old white men who have a lot of time and money to be able to volunteer. They just assume everyone's like them. And it's like, no, in fact, very few people are like you. So I think it's important for people to recognize the opportunity and the danger of what's going on right now.
I just want to repeat that statistic again, because you said that 65% of people globally can't afford to retire. Yeah. What is the most common limiting belief holding mature professionals back, and how can it be overcome?
Oh, that's a big question. You know, that stat varies regionally and so forth. Like even in the US, it's anywhere from 35 to 90%, depending on the area, the social band, et cetera. But it seems to average around 65%. And so the thing that holds us back, I would say probably number one is internalized ageism. We buy the stories that were done. We've heard it so much and so often that this is it. You get to 65 and then you move over and you're done. Whether that's true or not, we still have that running in our head. And so we need to really be aware of internal ageism and out it and check it against the reality of the situation. I've got numerous clients that are in their 80s. I know tons of people who are kicking ass and taking names in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And even one lady, I think she's 90 now. She was 89 when she started her second tech business in Calgary, Alberta. She started her first one at 69 with no experience, created the largest data center in Canada, possibly in North America. And then at 89, she is now expanding that, took over 20,000 additional square feet of office space, and is starting a second tech company that she will run well into her 90s. She can run circles around me and everybody half my age. That's going to become more of the new norm. Doesn't mean everyone has to be a going concern like that, but there will be more and more and more of that. So the biggest limitation is that we think we can't or we shouldn't be taking up space. And frankly, nothing could be further from the truth. The world needs our wisdom. It needs our contextual understanding and perspective. We still know what it's like to live with someone like Hitler. We still know what it's like to come through the kinds of rampant change that we've come through. We have a view of the world that can ground society in more of a sense of the fact that we are really, really connected. When, younger generations grew up with technology, grew up with being global. And so it's kind of like a water to a fish. They don't see that there's an issue with connection. We do. We see that there is that us and them going on. We see the divisiveness that is pulling us apart right now. We understand its roots more. We understand historically what happens when we go down these roads and the detriment. We know things and how to overcome them that are really, really valuable and important right now. I think it's super important for us to understand the value of our wisdom, the value of our perspective. And by the way, there's very many wise young people, and there's some very not wise older people. So it's not a given that if you're older, you're wise. But I think that the biggest objection or the biggest impediment is we don't get that we matter, and we do.
What advice would you give to someone who's listening to our discussion and they feel it's way too late for them to start something new?
Well, I'm trying not to swear, Debbie, really I am, but what I would resoundingly say to that is bullshit, because it's just not true. You are #not done by a long shot. If you are on this side of the dirt, you still have an opportunity to decide who you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have. And if you have this notion of I'm too late, it's too late, then guess what? It will be. If you decide that there's still time for you to choose again, then you can. That goes for anyone at any age. What we think becomes our reality, right? And if you think it's too late, well, guess what? It's going to be too late. So get help with getting clarity about what's possible. Get help with outing those limiting beliefs that are running, because they've been running for a long time. And just because they're in your head doesn't mean they're your voice or your belief. So get someone to support you. It's kind of like if you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. Get a coach, get a counselor, get a therapist, get a good friend who will actually give you solid feedback and can see clearly both your limitations and your strengths and feed both back to you. But get someone who has some objective perspective to say, here's some opportunities, here's some possibilities. I mean, it's why I created my primary course, which is about clarifying your vision. What do you want your next 30, 40, 50 years to be? Or 20, whatever it may be for you. What do you want it to be about? We've got a third of our life left. That didn't used to be the case. It is now. So what do you want that to be about? What do you want it to look like? What do you want to be doing? Where, with who? Create a vision. Then rediscover your purpose. I have a different definition of purpose, but basically rediscover your purpose so that you know who you are now, who you choose to be, and what matters to you. What are your priorities? When we don't have purpose and meaning in our life, we live 7 years less and unhealthier, unhappier years. When we have meaning and purpose, we live longer and we are much more healthy and vital. Purpose matters, meaning matters. So find that in your life. And then the third thing is get doing something you love. Create a business, create an opportunity, whatever it may be. It could be a side hustle. It could be a world dominating corporation. It could be a nonprofit. It could be perhaps you have the ability to volunteer. You don't need to make money, or perhaps you do find a job. Whatever it is, you are not done. So don't act like it.
Where do you see maturepreneur in the next 5 years?
Oh, well, my ideal, beautiful vision of this is that we have hundreds of thousands of people gathered together in communities, sharing inspiration and resources and refiring around the world, that they get inspiration from the podcast and that they are being inspired to look at the options and to decide, who do I want to be now? What do I want to do? And what do I want to have? From my personal perspective, I see thousands of people going through our courses and finding out what they're going to do and how they're going to monetize this next stage of their life. And mostly what I see is people waking up to the incredible power and benefit of older people around the world, and us returning to an intergenerational connected world where we're valued, included, and providing so much value to other generations and them to us. It's not just about, old people being siloed. It's about us really being valued. There are so many cultures that do, value and venerate their older people, but not so much in North America, not so much in many parts of Europe and Australia and so forth. So the countries that do tend to live longer, be happier, and have better overall health and happiness indexes. So hopefully the maturepreneur world will start to shift that tide. My ultimate goal is to end ageism through entrepreneurship.
I think that's a great aim to have. Jannette, I want to thank you so much for inspiring our audience and for being such an amazing guest on this podcast.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. I appreciate it. And I want people to be seen. I want them to be heard. So that's part of why I have a complimentary guide that they can grab to go from overlooked to overbooked, how to turn your wisdom into wealth. I want you to be finding your purpose, finding what's going to inspire you and light you up, and getting out there and using your voice to make the difference and be the difference that only you can be.
If you would like further details about Jannette, then please follow links in the show notes.